My name is Lily Morgan, and I turned 30 the night my family burned the last soft part of me. Not with a scream, not with a fight, with laughter. I walked into that birthday dinner carrying a wrapped gift I had made myself, a scrapbook full of old photos, handwritten notes, and pieces of a childhood I kept trying to believe had meant something. I thought maybe, for once, they would see the effort. Maybe they would remember I was not the family disappointment they had trained everyone to mock. Then my brother's son snatched the package from the table, marched toward the fireplace, and threw it straight into the flames. The paper curled first, then the photos blackened. Then the pages caught fire, one by one, like years of my life disappearing in front of me. He pointed at me and said, "Dad says you're the family failure." Nobody corrected him. Nobody gasped. My parents laughed like it was entertainment. My mother only shrugged and said, "Stop overreacting. It was only a joke." I stood there with the smell of burning paper in my throat and understood something terrifying. They were not laughing because they misunderstood my pain. They were laughing because they enjoyed it. So I left without crying, without begging, without giving them the reaction they wanted. Hours later, they sent one message: "You're cut off for good." I looked at it once, typed back, "Fine. Start packing. The house is mine," and put my phone down. 10 minutes later, the panic began. By midnight, there were 108 missed calls. Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now? Where are you watching from? And what's the weather like where you are? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. The first call came from my mother, then my father, then my brother, then numbers I had not seen in years. Uncles, cousins, even an old neighbor who had no reason to know anything unless my family had already started screaming for backup. I did not answer. I drove back to my apartment with both hands locked around the steering wheel, not because I was scared, but because my body had not caught up with what my mind already knew. For most of my life, I had been trained to shrink. When my brother Jake won trophies, everyone cleared shelf space. When I brought home honor roll certificates, they stayed folded in my backpack. When Jake needed help with rent, my parents called it family support. When I needed help after losing my first job, they called it proof I couldn't survive alone. Every insult had been wrapped as teasing. Every wound had been labeled sensitivity. But that night, when Jake's 8-year-old son, Caleb, repeated words he had clearly heard from adults, I realized cruelty had become a family tradition. They were teaching the next generation how to laugh at me. My best friend Mia was waiting outside my apartment by the time I got home. I had only texted her 3 words: "It happened again?" And somehow she knew not to call, not to ask, just to show up. She took one look at my face and said, "Tell me everything." I told her about the scrapbook, the fire, my mother Diane shrugging like my humiliation was nothing, my father Richard pretending silence was neutrality, and Jake laughing the loudest, as if his own son insulting me proved he had won. Mia did not interrupt. When I finished, she whispered, "Lily, this wasn't a joke. This was permission. They gave a child permission to disrespect you because they have been doing it for years." That sentence hit harder than the message cutting me off. Caleb was not born cruel. He had been coached by the adults who laughed. And the worst part was that the house they were laughing in, the fireplace, the dining room, the backyard where Jake hosted weekend parties, did not belong to my parents. It did not belong to Jake. It belonged to me. 3 years earlier, my grandmother Evelyn had died and left that house to me through a trust. Not because I was her favorite, though Jake loved saying that. She left it to me because I had spent the last 2 years of her life driving her to appointments, cooking for her, reading to her when her eyes got weak, and sitting beside her when everyone else was too busy. My parents stayed because I allowed it. Jake moved back in after his divorce because I allowed it. I had not asked for rent, or even reminded them whose name was on the deed, because some foolish part of me believed generosity might turn into gratitude. Instead, they mistook kindness for weakness. Mia stared at me when I said the house was mine. "Do they know?" she asked. "They know enough," I said. My grandmother's lawyer had sent everyone the trust documents after the funeral. My parents called it temporary paperwork. Jake called it grandma being dramatic. They kept acting like the house was still the family home, and I was just the unlucky daughter with a meaningless title. Around 1 in the morning, Jake finally stopped calling and sent a voice message. His voice was sharp and furious. "You better not be serious, Lily. You don't get to threaten Mom and Dad because you can't take a joke. That house is ours. You're nothing without this family." I deleted the message before it ended. Then I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the folder I had avoided for years. The trust, the deed, the property tax records, the emails from my grandmother's attorney. Everything was there, quiet and patient, as if waiting for the night I finally stopped being afraid of my own name on paper. Mia sat beside me and said, "Tomorrow, you call the lawyer. And this time, you don't ask for permission to be respected." By 7 the next morning, my phone looked like evidence from a crime scene. There were missed calls, texts, voice messages, and one long family group chat where everyone had suddenly discovered concern. My mother wrote, "We were just upset last night. Don't do anything extreme." My father wrote, "Let's talk like adults." Jake privately sent, "You'll regret embarrassing us." That made me laugh for the first time since the fire. Embarrassing them, not hurting me. Not watching my birthday gift burn while my parents laughed. The real emergency was that I had finally responded. I called my grandmother's attorney, Mr. Harris, at exactly 9. I expected surprise, but he only sighed softly, like he had been expecting this call for years. "Lily," he said, "your grandmother told me this day might come." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" He paused. "She knew your family would pressure you to treat ownership like an inconvenience. She also knew you would avoid conflict longer than you should. That is why she left a letter with the file." He emailed me a scanned copy while we were still on the phone. The subject line read, "For Lily, when she finally chooses herself." My grandmother's words felt like she was sitting beside me. She wrote that a home should never become a throne for people who mistake control for love. She wrote that she had watched me swallow disrespect to keep peace at tables where peace was only demanded from me. She wrote that leaving me the house was not revenge, it was protection. Then came the sentence that broke me. "When they call your boundaries cruel, remember how long they enjoyed your silence." I cried then, but not the kind of crying that makes you weak. It was the kind that clears smoke from a room. Mr. Harris explained the legal steps carefully. I could not throw anyone onto the street overnight, and I did not want to. But I had every right to end their free occupancy and require a formal move-out date. Because there was no lease and no rent agreement, he recommended a written notice giving them 30 days, plus a demand that they stop representing the property as theirs. He also told me Jake had contacted his office 6 months earlier, asking whether the trust could be corrected, because everyone knew the house was meant to stay with the real family. Mr. Harris refused to discuss it with him. Jake never told me. He had been trying to erase me on paper while smiling across dinner tables. I printed the notice, my grandmother's letter, and a copy of the deed with my name highlighted. Then I wrote my own letter. Not emotional, not messy, not begging. I stated that what happened at my birthday was unacceptable. I stated that jokes made through children were still adult cruelty. I stated they had 30 days to leave or sign a legal rental agreement with market rent, house rules, and written respect clauses. I knew they would never agree. They did not want a home. They wanted power without responsibility. Mia drove with me because she refused to let me go alone. During the ride, I kept seeing the scrapbook burn. Me at 9 holding a science fair ribbon while Jake made a face. Me at 12 beside Grandma Evelyn in the garden. Me at 16 in a thrift store prom dress because Jake's football camp cost too much that year. Those photos were gone now. But for the first time, I did not feel erased. The fire had only burned away my excuse for waiting. When we pulled up to the house, Jake's truck was in the driveway. My father's car was by the garage, and my mother was already behind the front window, watching like she expected police instead of her daughter. I told Mia to stay in the car unless I texted. Before I could knock, my mother opened the door. Her face was pale, but her voice tried to sound offended. "Lily, this has gone far enough." I looked past her into the house where my gift had burned less than 24 hours earlier and said, "No, it has finally gone far enough." The living room still smelled faintly of smoke. No one had cleaned the fireplace. Bits of blackened paper sat behind the screen like they were waiting for me to notice them. My father stood near the mantel with his arms crossed, wearing the tired expression he used whenever he wanted me to feel guilty for having feelings. Jake sat on the couch, pretending calm, but his jaw was tight. Caleb was not in the room, and I was grateful. I did not want another child dragged into an adult reckoning. My mother closed the door behind me and said, "We are willing to forgive your message if you apologize for threatening the family." That was when I understood they had not called me there to repair anything. They had called me there to put me back in my place. I placed the folder on the coffee table. "I'm not apologizing." Jake scoffed. "Of course you aren't. You never admit when you're being dramatic." I looked at him and saw the same boy who used to break my things and cry louder than me so our parents would comfort him. "You taught your son to call me a failure?" I said. He repeated what he heard. Jake leaned forward. "He's a kid." "Exactly," I said. "That makes it worse. You put your cruelty in his mouth because you thought it would be funny." My mother snapped, "Don't talk about my grandson like that." "I'm not blaming Caleb," I said. "I'm blaming the adults who laughed." My father rubbed his forehead. "Lily, your grandmother would be ashamed to see you dividing this family over a birthday incident." I opened the folder and took out Grandma Evelyn's letter. "Don't use her against me." His mouth closed. I read one line aloud. "When they call your boundaries cruel, remember how long they enjoyed your silence." My mother's eyes flickered. Jake looked away. For 1 second the room changed. Not enough to soften me, but enough to prove they understood more than they admitted. Then I placed the deed on the table. My name was highlighted in yellow. "This house belongs to me. It has belonged to me since Grandma's estate was settled 3 years ago. You know that. I let you live here because I thought family meant giving people shelter when they needed it. But last night, under my roof, at my birthday dinner, you laughed while my memories burned. Then you told me I was cut off. So I'm accepting your decision." My mother reached for the paper, but I kept my hand on it. "You wanted me cut off for good. That means you no longer get the benefits of my kindness." Jake jumped up. "You can't do this." "I can," I said, "and I'm doing it legally." I handed my father the notice. 30 days. You can move out, or apply to rent from me at market rate under a written agreement. No harassment, no insults, no using my home as a stage for humiliation, no pretending this property is yours." Jake laughed once, but there was no confidence in it. "Market rent? For our own house?" I looked at him. "Say that again after reading the deed." My mother's voice cracked. "After everything we did for you?" That sentence almost pulled the old Lily out of me, the one who would list every sacrifice and every bill I paid quietly. But I did not take the bait. "You raised me. That did not give you lifetime ownership of my silence." My father lowered into a chair and read the notice. Jake paced behind him. "This is insane. You're going to make Mom and Dad homeless because Caleb made one stupid joke?" No, I said. I'm ending an arrangement because 4 adults laughed at cruelty, then tried to punish me for refusing to accept it. That was when Caleb appeared at the hallway entrance clutching his toy dinosaur. He looked from me to his father and asked, "Dad, are we losing the house because I threw the book?" The room went silent. Jake froze. My mother covered her mouth. I crouched slightly. No, Caleb. You are not responsible for adult choices. But words hurt. And when grown-ups teach children to be unkind, grown-ups have to answer for that. Caleb looked at Jake. For the first time since I had known my brother as a father, he had no clever reply. I left the documents on the table and walked toward the door. Behind me, my mother said my name, but it no longer sounded like love. It sounded like someone watching a bill come due. I turned back once. 30 days, I said. Use them better than you used my kindness. By afternoon, the family version of the story had already started spreading. According to my aunt, I was evicting my elderly parents over a child's prank. According to Jake, I had stolen Grandma's house through paperwork. According to my mother, I was having some kind of emotional breakdown. What none of them mentioned was the burned gift, the laughter, the message cutting me off, or the fact that they had lived rent-free in my property for 3 years while calling me useless. I expected the smear campaign. What I did not expect was how quickly it collapsed when facts arrived. Mia told me not to defend myself in the family group chat. One message, she said, clean, calm, with receipts. So I sent exactly that. I wrote, "Since misinformation is being shared, here are the facts. The house legally belongs to me through Grandma Evelyn's trust. My parents and Jake have lived there with my permission, without rent, for 3 years. Last night, my birthday gift was thrown into the fire while adults laughed. Afterward, I was told I was cut off for good. I have now issued a legal 30-day notice. No one is being removed illegally. I will not discuss this further in a group chat." Then I attached the first page of the deed, the notice date, and a photo of the fireplace. I did not include Caleb's face. I did not shame the child. I showed only the ashes. The responses changed almost immediately. My aunt stopped typing. A cousin privately messaged, "I had no idea the house was yours." Another cousin admitted Jake had told people he was basically inheriting it because I couldn't manage real responsibility. Jake had not just mocked me, he had built a public story where I was incompetent so he could look like the rightful heir. And now the story was burning faster than the scrapbook. The next week was a storm of panic disguised as negotiation. My mother's voicemail swung between crying and accusation. "Lily, how can you do this to your father?" Became, "Your grandmother never wanted this." Became, "We can talk about rent, but not market rent." Became, "You know, Jake has nowhere stable to go." My father sent shorter messages. "Please call. This is bigger than you think. Your brother made mistakes, but family shouldn't be legal." Jake sent threats at first, then insults, then silence. Silence from Jake was new. It meant he was not winning. On day 6, Mr. Harris called me with more information. Jake had tried again to challenge the trust. Not formally, because he had no grounds, but loudly enough to embarrass himself. He claimed my grandmother was confused when she signed the documents. Mr. Harris reminded him the trust had been prepared years before her death, reviewed twice, witnessed properly, and confirmed while she was medically competent. Then Jake tried another argument. He had invested labor into the home. When asked for proof, he listed mowing the lawn, fixing a cabinet door, and hosting family barbecues. Mr. Harris told me he had rarely heard a weaker claim. Jake would rather accuse a dead woman of confusion than admit she had chosen me. The real collapse happened on day 9. I received a call from Vanessa, Jake's ex-wife. Her voice was careful. "Lily, I don't want drama, but Caleb came home upset and said he ruined everyone's life. I need to know what happened. I told her the truth gently. Vanessa listened, then sighed. Jake told Caleb to say that line, she said. Caleb told me last night. Jake said everyone would laugh and you needed to learn not to act superior. I closed my eyes. There it was. Not a kid's joke. Not a spontaneous prank. A planned humiliation using a child as the weapon. Vanessa apologized even though she had done nothing wrong. She said Caleb felt guilty and confused, and she would talk to him about kindness and accountability. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time. I was angry, but beneath that anger was grief. I was grieving the years I spent hoping Jake might one day become a brother if I loved him quietly enough. Some people do not become kinder because you endure them. Some people only become bolder. That night, my mother texted, "Your father isn't sleeping. Jake says you're destroying him. Please come over so we can fix this." I almost ignored it. Then I thought of Caleb blaming himself, my grandmother's letter, and all the times problems in my family were fixed by making me swallow the truth. So I replied, "I will come tomorrow at 6. Caleb should not be present. This conversation is for the adults who created the problem." The next evening, I returned to the house with Mia waiting in the car and Mr. Harris on speakerphone in my purse. Not secretly recording, not playing games, just ready if needed. This time, no one laughed when I walked in. The fireplace was clean. The table was clear. The scrapbook ashes were gone, but cleaning a room does not clean what happened in it. My father looked older than he had 2 days before. My mother sat beside him, twisting a tissue in her hands. Jake stood near the kitchen entrance with his arms crossed, but the performance was weaker now. He looked less like a man defending his family and more like a man realizing the audience had left. I did not sit down. "I'm here because Caleb thinks he caused this," I said. "That ends today." Jake rolled his eyes. "Vanessa shouldn't have called you." "Your son told the truth," I said. "You should try it." My mother flinched. My father looked at Jake. "What is she talking about?" Jake's face hardened. For a second, I thought he would deny it. Then he shrugged. "I told Caleb to tease her. I didn't tell him to throw it that hard." The room changed. My mother's tissue stopped moving. My father's mouth opened slightly. I felt no victory, only confirmation. Jake had planned it, then watched his own son carry the shame. "You used your child to humiliate me at my birthday," I said. Jake snapped, "Because you walk around like you're better than us with your little apartment and your quiet judgment." That almost made me laugh. Quiet judgment. I had paid the insurance on the house when my parents forgot. I had covered the property tax shortfall twice. I had sent grocery deliveries when my father's hours were cut. I had let Jake live in a room that legally belonged to me after his marriage fell apart. If that was judgment, it was the most generous judgment in America. My father's voice came out low. "Jake, tell me you didn't tell Caleb to say that." Jake looked at him, then at my mother. "Oh, come on, everyone was laughing. Don't act innocent now." That was the first honest thing he had said. My mother started crying. It got out of hand. I turned to her. "No. A candle gets out of hand. A joke gets out of hand." This was a room full of adults choosing cruelty until consequences arrived. My father covered his face. For years, he had survived family conflict by becoming furniture, present, silent, impossible to blame. But silence had finally become too expensive. I took out a second document. "This is an option, a written rental agreement, market rent, deposit, tenant responsibilities, no unauthorized occupants, and no harassment. If you sign it, you can stay. If you don't, the 30-day notice stands." My mother reached for it like it was hope. Jake grabbed it first, scanned the number, and exploded. "This is insane. We can't pay this." Then you can't afford the house, I said. Welcome to what every renter already knows. My father looked up slowly. Lily, we can't manage that amount right now. His voice was not angry. That made it harder. But hard did not mean wrong. I know, I said. That is why you have 30 days to find a place you can manage. I'm not throwing you out tonight. I'm not changing locks. I'm not humiliating you in front of children. I'm giving you more respect than you gave me. My mother cried harder. Where are we supposed to go? I answered honestly. Somewhere you can afford. Somewhere that is yours because you pay for it. Not because I keep absorbing the cost of being disrespected. Jake slammed the paper onto the table. So that's it? You get Grandma's house, and now you finally get to feel powerful? I stepped closer, only enough to stop shrinking. No, Jake. I felt powerful the moment I did not answer your 108 calls. The house is paperwork. The power was realizing I don't have to audition for basic decency. He had no reply. My father did. I failed you, he said quietly. The room went still. I thought ignoring things kept peace, but it only taught your brother there were no consequences and taught you that your pain was inconvenient. My throat tightened, but I did not rush to comfort him. That was another old job I had resigned from. Thank you for saying that, I replied. But an apology does not erase the notice. My mother whispered, Are you really going to make us leave? I looked around the room, the mantel where family photos hung with Jake in the center, the couch where I had sat through holidays feeling like a guest, the fireplace where my scrapbook had burned. Yes, I said. Because if you stay, you will spend every day trying to turn my boundary into guilt. I need this house back. Not just legally, emotionally. 2 weeks after my birthday, the begging became public. Not because I exposed them, but because Jake could not control himself. He posted a rant online about greedy relatives stealing homes from parents. He did not name me, but he included enough details that people figured it out. Then Vanessa commented one sentence. Tell them what you told your son to say before he threw her gift into the fire. The post disappeared within 15 minutes, but screenshots travel faster than shame can run. By midnight, Jake was calling me again. Not furious this time. Panicked. Lily, people are messaging me. Vanessa had no right. You need to tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. I said. It was not a misunderstanding. He lowered his voice. Please. My boss saw it. There it was. The concern was never morality. It was reputation. On day 17, my parents found a 2-bedroom rental 40 minutes away. My father texted me the address, then added, I know we don't deserve help, but could we use the truck on moving day? The old me would have said yes instantly, then packed boxes for them, then bought dinner, then apologized for the stress. The new me wrote, You can use the truck if you arrange insurance and return it by 6 p.m. I won't be helping with the move. Boundaries felt cold at first, then they felt clean. Moving day came with gray skies and thin rain that made everything look more honest. I arrived because Mr. Harris recommended a final walkthrough before they surrendered the keys. Mia came with me, carrying coffee and quiet support. The driveway was full of boxes. My mother stood near the garage, smaller somehow, her hair pinned badly, her face tired. My father loaded lamps into the truck. Jake dragged trash bags from the side door, avoiding my eyes. Caleb was with Vanessa that weekend, which was good. No child needed to watch adults confuse consequences with tragedy. For a moment, nobody spoke. Rain tapped against the cardboard. My mother walked toward me first. I found something, she said. She held out a small envelope, smoke-stained at one corner. It was behind the fireplace screen. Inside was one surviving photo from the scrapbook. Me and Grandma Evelyn in her garden, both of us laughing, her hand resting on my shoulder. The edges were burned, but our faces were untouched. I stared at it until my vision blurred. My mother said, "I'm sorry." The apology was small, too small for 30 years, but it was the first one that did not come with an excuse attached. "Thank you for giving it back," I said. She looked disappointed, maybe because she expected forgiveness to follow immediately, like a receipt. But forgiveness is not a vending machine. You do not insert an apology and receive access to someone's life. My father joined us, keys in his palm. "We're almost done," he said. Then, after a pause, "I should have protected you better." I nodded. "Yes, you should have." His eyes watered, but I let the sentence stand. Some truths deserve space. Jake came out last. He looked at the envelope in my hand and muttered, "So you got what you wanted." Mia shifted beside me, but I answered for myself. "No. What I wanted was a normal birthday. What I wanted was a family that did not teach a child to hurt me for laughs. What I wanted was to never need a legal notice to be treated like a human being." Jake's face tightened. "You always make yourself the victim." I shook my head. "No. I finally stopped volunteering for the role." He looked away first. Before he left, he said something I did not expect. "Caleb asked if he could write you a letter." My chest tightened. "He can," I said, "but don't help him write it." Jake flinched because he understood exactly what I meant. A week later, the letter arrived in a crooked envelope with my name written in blue marker. Caleb wrote that he was sorry for throwing my present, that his dad told him it would be funny, and that his mom said jokes are only jokes when everyone is laughing. He drew a little picture of a book with a heart on it. I cried harder over that letter than I had over any apology from the adults, not because it fixed everything, but because it proved the cycle could still be interrupted. After the house was empty, I walked through each room slowly. Without their furniture, the place looked different, smaller, less powerful. The living room was just a living room. The fireplace was just brick. The dining room was just a space with scratches on the floor. For years, I thought that house held authority over me because my family had filled it with old rules. Jake shines, Lily helps. Jake breaks, Lily forgives. Jake takes, Lily understands. But walls do not create rules. People do. And people can leave. I did not move in right away. First, I hired cleaners, then painters, then a contractor to repair the back steps my father had been meaning to fix since I was 19. I turned my grandmother's old bedroom into a reading room, full of light. I placed the burned photo of us in a simple frame on the shelf. Not to remember the pain, to remember the woman who saw me clearly before I saw myself. The scrapbook was gone, but the story was not. I started rebuilding it from memory, one page at a time. Mia helped. Vanessa sent copies of old family photos. Even one cousin mailed me a picture I had never seen before. Grandma Evelyn watching me graduate, smiling in the crowd while everyone else looked toward Jake, who had arrived late and still became the center of the conversation. My parents tried to reconnect slowly. At first, it was practical messages, mail forwarding, a missing box, the truck return. Then my father asked if we could meet for coffee. I said yes, but only for 1 hour, in a public place, without Jake. He agreed. My mother asked to come too. I said not yet. That was hard, but disappointment is not danger. I had spent too long treating other people's disappointment like an emergency. At coffee, my father did not ask for the house back. He did not ask me to forgive Jake. He only said he had started therapy because silence had cost him his daughter. I believed he meant it, but meaning it once is not the same as changing. So I told him, I'm open to rebuilding, but slowly, and if respect disappears, I disappear too. He nodded like a man learning a language he should have spoken years ago. As for Jake, he moved into a small apartment across town and told people he was starting over. Maybe he was. Maybe he was just waiting for sympathy to become useful again. I no longer studied him closely enough to know. Vanessa told me Caleb was doing better, and that mattered more. Months later, Caleb sent me another drawing. This one showed a house with flowers around it and a sign that said, Aunt Lily's home. I put it on the refrigerator. On my 31st birthday, I did not host a big dinner. I invited Mia, Vanessa, Caleb, and 2 friends from work. We ate pasta in the backyard under string lights. No one made speeches. No one turned my life into a punchline. Caleb handed me a wrapped present with both hands and said, very seriously, "This one is not for Fire." Everyone laughed then, including me, because this time the laughter did not cut. It healed. Inside was a small blank scrapbook. On the first page, Caleb had written, "New memories." People think revenge is always loud. They imagine shouting, slamming doors, dramatic speeches, someone begging on their knees. Sometimes revenge is quieter than that. Sometimes it is a legal notice delivered with a steady hand. Sometimes it is refusing to answer 108 calls from people who only panic when control slips away. Sometimes it is taking back a house, not to punish your family, but to stop letting them use your kindness as furniture. My parents called it just a kid's joke. But children repeat what adults reward, and when adults reward cruelty, someone has to end the lesson. I ended it with 30 days, 1 folder of documents, and the name my grandmother trusted enough to put on the deed. The house is mine now. But more importantly, so is my life.